In this video, I'll present to you the basic commands of the shell and how to manage in a simple way projects and calculations. First of all, we must start the shell into our computer. To do this, we open a shell and we execute .start rep shell. Pay attention to the dot and space before the command start rep shell. It is important to type this dot and space before the execution of this command. You don't have to do this for the rest of the repository commands. Once that command has been executed, we can execute the command pwd pro to know in what path we are in the repository. It is equivalent command to the Linux/Mac pwd. With pwd, you know the path in your local machine. With pwd pro, you are in the repository. Well, on the current path, it is not allowed to upload calculations. A calculation has always to be placed into a project. The first thing we have to do is to create a project. We execute the following command: cpro test1 -d first project -cggen. Once executed, at the root of our home, it has created a project called test1, with the description specified in the -d flag and the description specified in the -cg flag. A project is like a kind of folder, but with a couple of additional fields: description and concept, or concept group. The description field allows only to add a description to the field, and the concept group field allows to add a concept to indicate in a very short way what concept we can find in the project. Recommended values can be gen for generic, opt for optimizations, freq frequencies. Words to indicate very briefly the content of the project. Sometimes we will not be able to define the field. In that case, it's recommended to set gen to indicate general project. These three fields are mandatory. Now we can list the contents of the current path by executing lspro -f. This command prints a detailed list of the current path contents. This list is ordered by default as the name of the project. If we want a non-detailed list of the contents, just execute lspro. And as you can see, a brief list is printed. In this case, only the names of the projects and calculations are printed. The names of the projects between brackets and the names of the calculations without brackets. The next useful command is mpro. mpro allows the user to modify an already existing project and allows the user to modify most of their fields. For example, we're able to change the name of the last project for a new one by executing this command: mpro test1 -nn test1 mod. We have changed the name of the project for test1 mod. It is very important not to use some characters in the projects or calculation names, descriptions and concept, such as blanks, minus and slashes. On each command, we can obtain a brief help printed on the screen by executing the command plus -h flag. And for a more detailed help, you can download from the Scipio website the tutorials in the resources link. The most important command in Scipio is load calc. This command extracts the useful contents from the calculation files and sends it to the repository to be stored. The first thing to do when we want to load a calculation is to go into a project. To do this, just type the shell command cd pro plus the project name you want to move into. For example, cd pro test1 mod. Once in the project, you are able to load a calculation. Because the repository shell gives us a dual environment, we are able to work at the same time using command with the local files and the repository resources. Then to access the local ones, for Mac and Linux we have cd, and for the remote repository we have cd pro. Then we move to the local directory calc1, executing cd calcals/adf/calc1. Once here, we list the contents of the directory by executing ls-l, in this case an ADF calculation. In this kind of calculation, like for the Gaussian ones, we need the input and the output files to load the calculation into the repository. Then we execute the command load-calc test-adf -d, calculation description -i, file.in -o, file.out. We must now wait for some seconds, and after a while the calculation will be loaded. Now we can list the contents of the project by executing lspro -f. As you can see, the calculation has been loaded fine. Until here we have seen the most important commands in the repository. Like for the projects, there is a command to modify an already loaded calculation, mcalc. It works just like mpro, but there is a difference, because the owner, group and concept are inherent from the parent project. Those fields can only be changed by changing the parent project using mpro. Next up, we will delete a project. To do this, there is a command dpro. And if we want to delete a calculation, there is dcalc. In the following example, we will delete the recently created test1 mod project. To do this, we just move to the parent project by executing cdpro .. Once in the parent project, just execute dpro test1 mod. And as you can see, by executing lspro -f, the project has been deleted. But not only the project itself, but the whole contents of the project, I mean the inner project and the calculations. Be careful then. When we use this command, it can be dangerous. Finally, when we want to exit the repository system, it is recommendable to execute exit -rep. This command releases free some resources the repository shell has taken when we execute the command start rep shell.